Have you ever met someone who constantly blames their circumstances, never taking responsibility for their own life, or someone who refuses to consider new perspectives because they believe they already know everything? Foolishness is not a lack of knowledge. It is the rigidity of thought, the self-destructive habits that many fail to recognize. In Stoicism, wisdom is not an innate trait. It is a choice. Today, we will explore 6 signs of a foolish person, and more importantly, how to avoid becoming one. If you truly seek to take control of your life, sharpen your thinking, and become a stronger version of yourself, stay with us until the end of this video. 1. They always blame others. One of the clearest signs of a foolish person is their tendency to blame others. This is not just a bad habit. It is a dangerous mindset that hinders growth and personal development. When someone constantly looks for an external scapegoat instead of taking responsibility for their actions, they trap themselves in a cycle of stagnation, where every failure is due to circumstances, other people, but never themselves. We have all encountered such individuals, those who always have an excuse. If they are late to work, it's because of traffic. If they fail at their job, it's their colleagues, their boss, or the economy. If a relationship falls apart, the fault lies entirely with the other person. They never stop to ask, what could I have done better? Because taking responsibility requires courage. It forces them to confront themselves, acknowledge mistakes, and most importantly, change. But change is difficult, and fools would rather escape reality than face the truth that they may be the root cause of their own problems. Stoicism teaches that while we cannot control external circumstances, we have complete control over how we respond. Epictetus once said, "It is not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." A wise person understands that instead of seeking someone to blame, they should focus on the one thing they can control: themselves. When they make mistakes, they do not run from them. They embrace them as lessons. They do not see failure as disgraceful, but as an opportunity for growth. This is the fundamental difference between the wise and the foolish. One is willing to learn, while the other remains forever trapped in their own ignorance. Imagine you are an athlete running a race. When the race is over, you finish last. A fool will immediately find excuse. The shoes were bad, the track was uneven, the competition was unfair. But a wise person will stop and ask, did I train enough? What can I do to improve my speed? They understand that blaming circumstances will not make them faster, will not make them stronger. Only action changes outcomes. Look at the world's most successful people. They did not achieve greatness by blaming others. Thomas Edison conducted thousands of experiments before inventing the light bulb. If he had given up after the first failure and said, "This won't work because the materials are flawed," or "I failed because my assistant didn't do his job," the world might never have had electric light. Instead, he treated every failure as a step closer to success. The same principle applies to every aspect of life. A failed entrepreneur could blame the market or their business partners, but true success comes from analyzing mistakes and improving. The same is true in personal relationships. Those who constantly blame others will eventually find themselves isolated. A friend who always complains that people mistreat them, but never reflects on their own behavior, will end up alone. A husband who believes his wife is responsible for all their marital issues without ever examining how he communicates and treats her will watch the relationship deteriorate. Those who refuse to take responsibility for their actions cannot sustain healthy relationships because no one wants to bear the weight of another person's life. Stoicism does not teach us to dwell in guilt, but it does emphasize that every action has consequences, and we must take responsibility for them. When we begin to own our lives, we are no longer victims of circumstance. We are no longer controlled by external forces. Instead, we become the masters of ourselves. Remember, blaming others may offer temporary relief, but it does nothing to change reality. If you want to improve your life, if you want to be stronger, more successful, and truly fulfilled, stop blaming. Start acting. 2. They fear change. Change is one of life's inevitabilities, yet not everyone is willing to embrace it. A clear sign of a foolish person is their fear of change. They cling to the familiar, even when it no longer serves them, because change means confronting the unknown, relearning from scratch, and stepping outside their comfort zone. This creates a paradox. Although life is constantly evolving, those who fear change believe that by keeping things the same, they can avoid uncertainty. But the truth is, resisting change does not make them safer. It only keeps them stagnant while the world moves forward. Think of the once dominant companies that collapsed because they refused to adapt. Blockbuster is a prime example. They were giants in the video rental industry, but when streaming began to rise, they ignored it. Meanwhile, Netflix, a small startup at the time, leveraged technology to pioneer a new model. Blockbuster had the opportunity to evolve, to adapt, but instead, they clung to outdated methods and were ultimately left behind. Fear of change doesn't just lead to stagnation. It can cost everything. This fear is not limited to business or technology. It seeps into the smallest aspects of life. Someone may despise their job but stay because they fear that leaving might mean never finding a better one. Someone may remain in a toxic relationship because they fear loneliness, believing they will never find another partner. Someone may have a brilliant business idea but never act on it, afraid of failure and judgment. Yet what they fail to realize is that by clinging to a false sense of stability, they are restricting their own potential. Stoicism teaches that instead of resisting change, we should use it as an opportunity for growth. Marcus Aurelius once said, "Loss is nothing but change. Change, nature's delight." We cannot control everything that happens, but we can control how we respond. A storm may uproot a towering tree, but it cannot break a flexible bamboo stalk. The bamboo bends with the wind and endures. People are the same. If we remain rigid, unwilling to accept new realities, we risk breaking. But if we embrace change and adapt, we become stronger. Look at the most successful people in the world. They weren't the best when they started, but they were willing to change, learn, and adapt. Steve Jobs wasn't born knowing how to create the iPhone. He continuously learned, experimented, and refined his vision. Elon Musk wasn't a rocket expert when he launched SpaceX, but he faced failure head-on, learned from mistakes, and adjusted his strategy. The difference between those who succeed and those who fail is not luck or innate talent. It is the ability to embrace change and turn it into an advantage. Imagine standing at a crossroads. One path is familiar, predictable, but leads nowhere new. The other is uncertain, full of risks, yet holds the potential for incredible opportunities. A person who fears change will take the familiar road, even if they know it won't lead them where they want to go. But a wise person understands that everything valuable in life lies beyond fear. No one achieves greatness by staying within their comfort zone. If you feel stuck, if you realize you're holding on to something out of fear of change, ask yourself, what's the worst that could happen? And if it does, how would I handle it? More often than not, we realize our fears are exaggerated, that even if things don't go as planned, we can learn, adapt, and keep moving forward. Life is a constant current, and those who learn to swim with it will always go further than those who cling to a rock in the middle of the stream. So instead of fearing change, welcome it. See each shift as an opportunity to grow, to explore, and to move closer to the best version of yourself. Remember, those who fear change never go far, but those who face it head-on, who embrace it and adapt, are the ones who truly take control of their lives. 3. They prefer speaking over listening. One of the clearest signs of a lack of wisdom is the tendency to speak more than to listen. Such individuals believe their words hold more weight, that their opinions are more valuable, and that they have no need for the perspectives of others. In conversation, they are not truly listening. They are merely waiting for their turn to speak. This does not just weaken personal relationships. It robs them of countless opportunities to learn and grow. A person who only talks but never listens merely repeats what they already know, while one who listens can absorb new knowledge, gain deeper insight, and expand their understanding of the world. We have all encountered such people. Those who interrupt, those who dominate conversations without regard for others' reactions. They do not ask questions, do not seek understanding. They only wish to impose their views. Yet the irony is this: the more they talk, the more they reveal their ignorance. The truly wissy-fussy often speak the least, because they understand that knowledge is gained through listening, not speaking. Epictetus, one of the great Stoic philosophers, once said, "We have 2 ears and 1 mouth, so that we can listen twice as much as we speak." Listening is not merely remaining silent while another person talks. It is a skill, an art that requires focus, empathy, and the ability to set aside one's ego. The foolish refuse to listen because they believe they already know everything. They fail to recognize that every person has a unique perspective, a different experience, and that by listening, they could learn things they never even considered. A true leader is not the one who speaks the most eloquently, but the one who listens to their team, understands their needs, and motivates them in the right way. A true friend is not the one who always gives advice, but the one who listens without judgment. A great teacher is not the one who talks the most, but the one who understands what their students need through careful observation and engagement. History has shown that the greatest leaders are those who know how to listen. Abraham Lincoln, one of America's most revered presidents, was known for gathering input from all perspectives before making decisions. He did not rush to impose his own views, but instead collected information from multiple angles, carefully weighing every option before acting. This ability to listen allowed him to make wise decisions that guided the country through its most turbulent times. Had he simply clung to his own opinions without considering others, the United States might not have survived the Civil War. Conversely, those who fail often do so because they refuse to listen. They ignore advice, dismiss warnings, and trap themselves in their own narrow views, failing to realize that the world does not revolve around them. A boss who refuses to listen to their employees will create a disengaged workforce, stifling innovation and progress. A business that disregards customer feedback will never improve its products or services. A person who neglects to listen to their loved ones will slowly erode their relationships, creating distances that may never be repaired. Imagine a conversation where both people only want to speak, neither truly listening. It is no longer a dialogue, but a collision of competing monologues, devoid of connection. Those who refuse to listen can never truly understand others, and without understanding, there can be no empathy, no meaningful relationships. Foolishness is not merely a lack of knowledge. It is the refusal to learn, and there is no better way to learn than by listening. If you find yourself speaking more than you listen, Ask yourself a simple question. Am I truly listening? Or am I just waiting for my turn to talk? If the answer is the latter, it is time to change. Cultivate patience. Focus on what the other person is saying instead of formulating your next response. Ask questions. Seek to understand. Try to see the world through someone else's eyes. Only when we master the art of listening can we truly connect with the world around us. In life, the wisest people are not the ones who speak the most, but the ones who understand the most. And to understand, we must first listen. Do not let your ego block you from receiving valuable lessons from others. Listen, not just with your ears, but with your mind, with curiosity, and with sincerity. That is the only way to become wiser, more insightful, and more deeply connected to the world. 4. They choose arrogance over humility. Arrogance is one of the clearest signs of a lack of wisdom. It is not merely an inflated sense of self-importance. It is a formidable barrier that prevents learning and growth. The arrogant believe they already know everything, that their perspective is the only truth, and that they have no need to listen or evolve. Yet the irony is that this very arrogance traps them in outdated ways of thinking, keeping them from ever progressing. The moment a person believes there is nothing left to learn, they close the door to wisdom and instead sink into their own ignorance. We have all encountered such individuals, those who always think they are the smartest in the room, who seek to prove themselves rather than genuinely listen. They flaunt their knowledge, always trying to dominate discussions, but in reality, they are only masking their own insecurities. A truly wise person has no need to boast, because they understand that knowledge is infinite, and no one holds the entire truth. Humility does not mean diminishing oneself. It means recognizing that there is always something to learn from others, regardless of who they are. History has shown that the greatest minds are not those who stubbornly cling to their beliefs, but those who are willing to change when they realize they are wrong. Albert Einstein, one of the greatest thinkers of all time, once said, "The more I learn, the more I realize how much I don't know." It was this humility that allowed him to constantly push the boundaries of science. Conversely, those who are arrogant, no matter how talented, will eventually be left behind. A CEO who refuses to listen to their team because they believe they know everything may lead their company to failure. A political leader who refuses to change their stance out of fear of losing power may bring an entire nation into crisis. An athlete who believes they no longer need to train will soon be surpassed by new competitors. Stoicism teaches that arrogance is one of the most dangerous traps of the human mind. Epictetus once said, "It is impossible for a man to learn what he thinks he already knows." When we believe we have all the answers, we lose the motivation to learn, the reason to listen, and we become blind to our own mistakes. Arrogance not only limits our growth, it damages our relationships. No one wants to work with someone who always assumes they are right. No one wants to be around someone who never admits their faults or refuses to change. Imagine a conversation between two people, one humble, one arrogant. The humble person listens, asks questions, and tries to understand different viewpoints even when they disagree. The arrogant person, on the other hand, interrupts, dismisses opposing views without thought, and constantly tries to prove themselves right. In the end, who will learn more? Who will build stronger relationships? Who will become wiser? The answer is obvious. Look at the role models of humility in the world. The most successful entrepreneurs are not those who cling stubbornly to a single idea, but those who adjust their strategies, embrace feedback, and evolve when necessary. The greatest scientists are not those who claim to have all the answers, but those who continuously ask questions in pursuit of truth. The most effective leaders are not those who command from above, but those who listen to those below them, learn from them, and make informed decisions based on collective wisdom. If you find yourself constantly defending your opinions at all costs, feeling uncomfortable when someone points out your mistakes, or frequently trying to prove you are smarter than others, pause for a moment and ask yourself, what is more important, proving that I'm right, or actually learning something? The moment you set aside your ego and acknowledge that you do not know everything, you will realize just how vast the world truly is. Humility does not just make you more knowledgeable, it strengthens your relationships. When you are willing to listen, others will be willing to listen to you. When you admit your mistakes, you do not become weaker. You become more trustworthy. When you open yourself to new knowledge, you ensure that you are always growing, always improving. Stoicism does not teach self-depreciation, but it does remind us that true wisdom comes from understanding that we will never know enough. Stop trying to prove that you are better than others. Instead, focus on becoming a better version of yourself. 5. They lack empathy. One of the clearest signs of a foolish person is their lack of empathy. They see the world only through their own lens, dismissing the emotions and struggles of others as unimportant or irrelevant. Quick to judge and criticize, they make assumptions without understanding the full context. To them, everything is black or white, right or wrong, leaving no room for nuance, understanding, or compassion. But life is not that simple, and people are not machines operating on fixed formulas. Every individual carries unseen burdens, untold struggles, and silent battles. Ignoring the emotions of others does not make one stronger. It isolates them and robs them of one of the most vital components of wisdom, the ability to connect deeply with the world around them. We have all encountered such people, those who hastily pass harsh judgments, who label others as weak for expressing emotions, or who dismiss struggles as mere excuses for laziness. A manager berates an employee for being late, unaware they just lost a loved one. A friend complains about being neglected, never considering that you may be battling personal hardships. A parent scolds their child for poor grades without asking if something deeper is troubling them. Those who lack empathy are always quick to form conclusions before understanding the full story. To them, other people's emotions hold little value because they are too consumed by their own world. Stoicism does not encourage drowning in emotions, but it never teaches us to ignore the emotions of others. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "We were born to work together, like two hands, like two rows of teeth." This means that, whether we like it or not, we are part of a collective, and no one can thrive in complete isolation. A lack of empathy is not just a sign of foolishness, it is a path to solitude. Those who fail to understand others will eventually find themselves misunderstood. Empathy does not mean agreeing with everyone or catering to their every emotion. It means recognizing that people go through struggles you cannot see, that their pain is valid, and that you do not always have the full picture. When someone treats you poorly, they may not be a bad person. Perhaps they are simply having a terrible day. When someone fails at their job, it may not be due to incompetence, but rather unseen personal battles weighing them down. A wise person does not just look at actions. They ask, why did this person behave this way? What might they be going through? The greatest figures in history were not just intelligent. They were deeply compassionate. Abraham Lincoln was known not only for his leadership, but for his profound ability to understand those around him. His decisions were not made from a place of cold calculation, but with careful consideration of the people affected by them. Likewise, the best leaders today are not those who merely issue commands, but those who listen, empathize, and inspire. A boss may not always agree with an employee, but if they listen and seek to understand, they will earn respect and loyalty. A lack of empathy does not just harm others, it directly harms the one who lacks it. Someone devoid of compassion will eventually find themselves alienated, unable to build meaningful relationships. They may achieve short-term success, but in the long run, they will be left alone, as no one wishes to stay close to a person who cannot care for others. Time has shown that those with high emotional intelligence, those who empathize, understand others' emotions, and adjust accordingly, tend to achieve greater success in both their careers and personal lives. This is not a coincidence. When you genuinely care about others, they will be there for you when you need them. When you treat people with an understanding, you will receive the same in return. If you find yourself quick to judge, easily irritated by others' emotions, or dismissive of people's struggles, pause for a moment and ask yourself, do I truly understand them? Am I seeing this situation only through my own perspective, without considering theirs? Try for once to step into their shoes. Listen before you judge. See the world not just through your own eyes, but through the eyes of others. When you do this, you will not only become a wiser person, but also a better one. Stoicism does not teach weakness or emotional indulgence, but it reminds us that no one exists in isolation. You may be intelligent, talented, and strong, but if you cannot understand and connect with others, none of it matters. Empathy does not make you weak. It makes you stronger. It allows you to build deep relationships, understand people on a profound level, and most importantly, become the best version of yourself. 6. They refuse to learn. One of the most dangerous traits of a foolish person is their refusal to learn. They believe that what they know is enough, that their perspective is absolute truth, and that there is no reason to absorb anything new. They live in a world where everything remains fixed, where they see no need to change, adapt, or expand their thinking. But the problem is, the world never stops moving. Knowledge never ceases to grow, and a person who refuses to learn is choosing a path of decline. No one can evolve if they are unwilling to embrace new knowledge. The wise never stop learning, because they understand that knowledge is not finite. It is an endless current. We have all encountered such individuals, those who reject new ideas, dismiss perspectives that challenge their own, and never question their beliefs. When faced with opposing viewpoints, they do not listen or reflect. They immediately argue you, sometimes even mock. They do not learn from others because they assume they are already right, and anyone who disagrees must be wrong. This mindset not only traps them in ignorance, but also causes them to miss countless opportunities to expand their intellect, refine their reasoning, and become a better version of themselves. Stoicism emphasizes that wisdom is not found in being content with what one already knows, but in the relentless pursuit of learning. Epictetus once said, "It is impossible for a man to learn what he thinks he already knows." The most intelligent people in the world never claim to know enough, because they understand that the more they learn, the more they realize how little they truly understand. Albert Einstein, one of the greatest minds in history, once said that he had no special talents, only an insatiable curiosity. It was this relentless curiosity, this unwavering commitment to learning, that allowed him to uncover some of the universe's deepest truths. If a genius like Einstein believed in continuous learning, why would anyone else assume they have nothing left to learn? Those who refuse to learn do not just limit themselves professionally, they restrict growth in every aspect of life. An employee who refuses to develop new skills because they think they already know enough will soon be replaced as technology advances. A business person who refuses to learn from their mistakes will repeat the same failures again and again. A spouse who does not listen and grow with their partner will slowly see the relationship fade. A friend who never tries to understand a different perspective will eventually find themselves isolated. Learning is not just about acquiring knowledge. It is about growth, adaptation, and the ability to truly connect with the world. Look at the people who achieve lasting success. They were not born knowing everything. They became great because they never stopped seeking knowledge, never stopped questioning, never stopped experimenting, and always learned from their failures. Thomas Edison conducted thousands of experiments before inventing the light bulb. If he had believed he knew everything from the start and refused to experiment, the world might still be in darkness. Steve Jobs did not create the iPhone through raw talent alone. It was decades of learning, failing, refining, and improving that led to his breakthroughs. The truly great never stop because they understand that stopping is the beginning of decline. If you ever feel stuck, if you find yourself clinging to old beliefs without opening your mind to new perspectives, ask yourself, what do I not yet know? What can I learn from others? The truth is, you do not have to agree with everything, but you must be willing to listen, to consider, and to grow. Those who refuse to learn are not strong. They are fragile. They fear that changing their views will make them lose a part of themselves. But what they fail to see is that change does not make them weaker. It makes them stronger. Stoicism does not teach blind acceptance of everything, but it does teach that refusing to learn is an act of self-imposed limitation. A wise person never says they have learned enough because they understand that life is a journey of continuous expansion. If you truly want to take control of your life, to grow, to go further, then learning is not an option. It is a necessity. To stop learning is to stop growing. And when you stop growing, you begin to lose yourself. When reflecting on these 6 signs of foolishness, the goal is not to judge others, but to turn inward and examine ourselves. At some point, we have all blamed instead of taking responsibility, feared change instead of facing it, spoken more than we listened, chosen arrogance over humility, lacked empathy, or refused to learn. I have, and I believe everyone watching this video has experienced moments like these as well. But the difference between someone who grows and someone who remains stagnant lies in their willingness to recognize these flaws and change. I do not believe in instant transformation because that is impossible. But if each day we take one step forward, if each day we become just a little better than we were yesterday, that is the path to true wisdom. Foolishness is not a life sentence. It only persists if we fail to acknowledge it or refuse to change. But if you have watched this far, I believe you are not one of those people. So start with something simple. Choose one of these 6 traits and ask yourself, how can I improve this today? If you found this video valuable, hit like to let YouTube know that this content deserves to reach more people. Subscribe so you don't miss future lessons on Stoicism and mental resilience. And most importantly, leave a comment sharing which of these 6 traits you feel you need to work on the most. Together, we can become better versions of ourselves every day. I'll see you in the next video.